Hello. Well, I want to say this has been a shocking week. I mean, apart from the football, there's an article here in the Church Times which has deeply upset me, and I want to share that with you. It's this: shock on Church of England task force at refusal of funding for diocesan racial justice officers. Do you know what that means? It means that there will be no paid racial justice officers patrolling Church of England dioceses looking for sinners. Now, I'd say this is a terrible thing, but I'm going to read what the Church Times has to say about it. The co-chairs of the Archbishop's Anti-Racism Task Force, so there's a task force, have expressed shock and disappointment at the Archbishop's Council's refusal to fund full-time racial justice officers in each diocese. By full-time, we mean, of course, drawing a salary. Among the recommendations of the task force's report, From Lament to Action, published in April, was that by the autumn, full-time racial justice full-time racial justice officers be in every diocese where they are not already in place, centrally funded for 5 years to work in individual churches and wider communities looking for witches. Racists. The questions document, now hang on a minute, let's, you can go through this whole thing. The council, and this is what the council said, it understands the rationale for this recommendation and will do more work on how best to support racial justice across the country through a network of officers who would be suited to different contexts. So we can have part-time racial justice officers. Now look, I may have got this wrong, but I thought Christianity, if you're a Christian, it's all about being anti-racist or anti any sort of prejudice. That's what Christianity is supposed to be about. So one would think that if you have a parish priest who is a Christian, then he should be standing up for, against racism without having a Witchfinder an anti-racist officer coming in and sort of, wiping his finger over the tops of the doors to make sure there's no dust there. What else do we have here? When you pay somebody to find things, then that somebody will find things, will they not? And you'd think that the church, if its heart was in the right place, would be quite happy to have voluntary people who took it upon themselves to just generally keep an eye on things in their communities, that you wouldn't have to send officers in to find this out. But no, apparently this was, and the only reason it didn't work was because they're running out of funding. Now look, what do they say here? There are 42 dioceses. Oh yeah, and they want to introduce a racial justice Sunday once a year. Now, you see, to be serious for a moment, because this whole thing is, it's ridiculous and heartbreaking at the same time. What is a racial justice Sunday? I mean, every Sunday should be a racial justice Sunday. Why do they have to make a special day for it? I mean, what's Christianity supposed to be about? It just shows the depths to which the church has descended. Okay, look, the church has other things it should be spending its money on. There are ignorant and ill-educated people who need enlightenment and education. There are poor people in this country. There are people in need. There are girls being preyed upon by, well, Muslim gangs. There are long-term unemployed people. There are mentally ill people and homeless people. And that's what the church should be plugging away at. If you had a homeless awareness week, that would be better than a racial justice week, because get this, people of all races are homeless. People of all races are mentally ill. People of all races find themselves underprivileged in one way or the other. Oh yeah, we're back onto this all lives matter business, aren't we? So they've ditched it now. It all came up after the George Floyd thing, but now, well, it's all, the froth has died down a bit, and so everything's levelling off. And that's what's the problem with the church right now. Woke politics, fashionable issues. Now, Justin Welby came up in the synod in February of 2020. So that's just over a year ago, a bit more than a year ago. And he said the church was deeply institutionally racist. Deeply. Yeah, that's a direct quote from the head of the Church of England. Oh, that man makes me so angry. It's a load of bloody nonsense, and it irritates me no end. And others as well, because churches are closing down all over the place, aren't they? Parishes are being rationalised. That's one vicar visiting a different church in a sort of rotation. So they keep the church open, but they only pray there once a month because there isn't enough of a congregation to keep the churches going. Why should they be? If people go to the churches and the head of the church tells, oh, you're institutionally racist, we've got to have a Witchfinder, racial justice officer in here every week to make sure you don't say something nasty over the tea urn after the service. Now, people go to church because they want to affirm their belief in God. Sometimes not so much. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they go there for the social aspect. My local Methodist church has a full house every week and a lively social congregation. And people aren't talking about racial justice there. They're just going in there and having their quiz suppers and everything. And they don't care who's in there. And they don't need to be told about racial justice. And no one's haranguing them about institutional racism. No one wants to go to places where they're constantly being told they're terrible people. Now, actually, there's been a bit of a scandal about the lavish lifestyles of the bishops with their large houses and staff of servants. Actually, I don't begrudge them that. They represent the church. They have to entertain other dignitaries. They have to maintain a certain way of living, which indicates the church is doing well, which it is not. As I said, I don't mind that. What I do mind them is not having the humility to acknowledge their position without telling the rest of us how terrible we are for supporting them. Racism isn't what the church is all about. If they followed Christian principles, then there couldn't be any racism. You know, attacking racism as a separate subject in a Christian institution is like, it's like changing the light bulbs because the main fuse has blown. It won't do you any good, and it doesn't attack the core of the problem. The core of the problem is being properly Christian and not employing witchfinders to find things that don't exist. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.